So, with the release of Sun and Moon, and the basic confirmation that it's going to be a new generation, we're left with the question, where is this new generation based off of? And today I brought you Cram's Earth Profile 12-inch world globe to help determine what it would be. Now, a couple things about this globe. A, it's actually really cool because the mountains ranges, they actually have ridges for them. That's a lot of detail on a globe. So this is actually kind of cool. The other thing is, as you might be able to tell, Russia's looking a little big. That's because apparently this is an old globe, because there's still a Soviet Union around. And also, in Africa, the Democratic Republic of the Congo is still being called Zaire, and might be a little bigger than it is now, I don't know. But let's get to what the regions would be now. Pokemon regions, from my experience, aren't going to be like Chile. They aren't going to be like lines. They're going to be generally rounded, and you usually want some water. Like coastline, sea coastline, maybe lake, who knows? Maybe it would work that way. Another thing is, they're basically going to use the entire country they use. In Japan, they were able to cut it down into like 4 separate regions there because, well, Japanese folk know Japanese stuff. In France, they cut it down to half, and New York is basically New York. So, they're basically going to use an entire country. So the country needs to be kind of circly, blockish, raggy, and not a straight line, and it has to have coastline. Now with those parameters set, let's go. Our least likely candidate is actually the continent of Asia, since they've spent so much time in Japan. But if they are going to do one in Asia, well, first of all, it's going to have to basically connect to a more or less flat line of Kalos, from what we can see so far. And unfortunately, that eliminates the India, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh fusion that was going to go on, even if it was Pakistan. So unfortunately, that's not going to happen. It actually would have been kind of cool. And China's got something going. China actually would have something going for it if it just fused with Mongolia, but problem is, again, it's Asia. They're not going to stay in Asia too much. Now, there is actually a part of Asia that really interests me, and that would happen to be Indonesia. There's just so many islands that they could split it in. That would actually be really cool, I think, as one whole region. It really would. Now, going down to Oceania, we got, obviously, the obvious one, Australia. Now, Australia's kind of good. It's an island, yeah, they can work with that. It doesn't have the flat top they want, but maybe they could find a way. Maybe it's not even purely connected to Kalos, I don't know. I think the real problem with Australia is it's not really that diverse in landscape. See this east coast here? You got your jungles. Desert. Jungles, desert. Jungles, desert. That's basically how it goes in Australia. Now, a part of Oceania that I think would be really good is actually New Zealand. Now, New Zealand as a whole has a problem of the bad straight line shape. But if you took just that northern half, I think you could actually get a pretty good region. Thing is, they're not that important of nations, and it's probably just not going to be used at all. Now, moving on to Europe, back up. You have, well, technically Russia, but Russia's just way too big. Way too big to do. These 3 that Russia probably wants, yeah, too linear, not very good, because you don't want linear, because then it's just, you start here, then here, then here, next time here, 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 here. You want a little bit of a diversity like they did in Kalos, and they were allowed to do that because France is kinda circly, kinda, which is also going to eliminate the UK. Now, obviously, they could just do southern half of France and get it over with. They could also use Spain, which is conveniently safe for their purposes. And obviously, if they do Spain, they're just going to fuse it with Portugal. Now, Italy, definitely no. It has the right connection to France. Like, it literally has a connection to France. But its shape is just way too linear. Most of these countries actually kind of have the right shape. I mean, Czechoslovakia, technically, I think it's split into the Czech Republic and Slovakia or something. And these guys over here have the right shape, but they just aren't important enough as nations to be used. Now, Greece has some historical importance. Problem is, its shape doesn't really work unless you use all its islands, and if you use all of its islands, it actually looks a lot like Hoenn. So I don't think we'll be using Greece. Sorry, Greece. Your pole stay pole. Now, the big boy, Africa. Now, Africa, the colonists kind of ruined it with how they split apart their nations. Both tribally and in terms of Pokemon. They just wanted to screw Africa over. Like, no, you will not get a Pokemon region. So the main one of the theories is that it's in Egypt, because one of the hotels looks like it's from Egypt. The problem I think they're going to have doing it from Egypt is that, look at that. It's a line. Pokemon's not going to do a line. Egypt's got a huge problem. If it weren't for that line, it would be decent, because all these northern places, no matter how good their shape is for it, no matter how good the water border is for it, it's a desert. Pokemon doesn't want a region full of desert, which is a big problem, especially for poor Sudan, I think. Although Sudan does have jungle, I think. There's then Chad, Niger. They could have made that the biggest joke ever with just one more G. Then there's Mali, their problems, obviously, no water nearby, so we'll just cut them all out. I'm sorry, Zaire. You don't actually exist anymore. You're Democratic Republic of Congo. You're the DIRC, the DRC right now, but you don't got the water nearby you no more. One of the things I think that could really happen is Tanzania or Kenya. I'm sorry, it's an old globe, guys. Because they both got a pretty good coastline. And I don't know how diverse they are or what's going on there. But they both share a huge freshwater lake also. And they're in pretty good shape for it as well. But I think there's one nation in Africa that just really takes the cake on it, and that's Nigeria. I don't know the geography of Nigeria. I don't even know if Upper Volta was ever a thing. But Nigeria, it just looks perfect. You got the ocean down here to help you with those needed water types. And best of all, look at that. Look at that top. That looks like it's supposed to connect with something. Mostly because it does. But Nigeria definitely looks like a very good option if they go for Africa. Definitely. Now, we get to move to the civilized world, JK. Let's start up in Northern America. Named after a dead dude. Now, I cannot see them doing Canada. Because Pokemon, they want to have tropical things in their regions occasionally. From place to place. They've done it everywhere. I'm not exactly sure if they did for France. French people, correct me if you got that kind of stuff. But Canada, I don't think there's much to work with for Canada. I'm sorry, Canada. No offense. I love your maple syrup, but you're just not Pokemon worthy. That goes for you too, Alaska. And I guess I have to talk about Greenland, because Greenland's actually got a really nice shape for this. If you turn it sideways, I guess. But the problem is that Greenland's a land of frickin' ice and volcanoes. And with so much ice, you don't have a very good region. The United States has already been done, and they can't do anything western without being blocks, which makes it so that you have to use these states. And you can break it down into a city. You shouldn't. But they did. So next up would be Mexico, and then little states that nobody cares about. I know you're not states. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have called you states, but you're just so unimportant. Okay, now, this is the really good one. I've actually heard people say that it could be in Hawaii. Hawaii is too small. There's not enough good stuff for Hawaii to do. If you're gonna do Hawaii, then just do freaking Samoa or something. Little tiny Samoa. Technically, it should be a state, but Americans are dicks. I'm making some fun of everyone here, guys. Everyone. Now, Colombia's actually got a really nice shape for this. It really does. It has to be... I think it'll have to adjust a little, but Colombia's definitely a solid choice for a region. It's got the water. It's got a good enough shape. Then you go down to Peru, which, no. You got a little chilly here. Like, how are you still a nation? Why hasn't Argentina taken you over? Why didn't Argentina take you over? Speaking of Argentina, it's still too linear. Uruguay is too insignificant. Paraguay is also too insignificant. It has a bad shape. Bolivia, poor as hell. And then... Brazil. Brazil's the big boy. Brazil's the most likely one just because it has so much stuff. It's got an Amazon rainforest to basically from here, and then you have the city section here. Wildlife Safari Park. Actual region. Safari Park, actual region. That's Brazil's weakness. Also, they'd have to show off a hell of a lot of poverty for Brazil, and, probably South America as a whole. Haven't been there well enough to know, but South America, most likely it would be from Brazil. Then there's Guyana, French Guiana, and then Suriname, right in the center here. The orange dude. Now, what I think is interesting is Venezuela. Like, look at that nation. That looks like it's supposed to be the bottom half of a nation. And maybe it was, I don't know. Maybe God just screwed up and put islands there instead. I don't know. But Venezuela looks like it's supposed to be the bottom half of something. Problem being that top half of it, that would be the connector, is kind of surrounded by ocean. So that is undoubtedly the biggest weakness there. I'd say it's probably gonna be in Brazil. It probably will be Brazil. Who knows? Maybe it's Antarctica. And that place is dark. So yeah, it's probably Brazil. Maybe Bolivia for a convenient shape, but I'm thinking it's still Brazil. Brazil's got the coastline. It's got places to connect to crap. And still have a coastline. Brazil's just so freaking big. Like, then there are all these tiny islands. Like, they're gonna base it on Tongareva Island. It's probably been covered up by the ocean by now or something. I don't know. So, honestly, the best shape out of them all really would have to be Brazil. Brazil, congratulations. You're probably in Pokemon. Give yourself a round of applause and fix your freaking poverty.